Audio
Video
check.
is fucking great. Yeah. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
I'm
It's just
gonna keep that.
okay. Awesome.
Any hope? We ready to go?
We're ready. Ready as
All
we're
right.
ever gonna be, my friend.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
Jesus. All right. We'll start the intro in 3, 2, 1. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Modern Gamer podcast, the most modern podcast for gamers. I'm your host, Jeffrey Jewell, joined this week by our resident Pokephile and certified Witcher, Joseph McBride. Joe, how you doing?
Hey, what's up? How are you doing? I'm doing pretty good.
Wow, you can just answer all the questions and ask them. That's great. That's a new skill you've got there. We're also joined by our founder. Of
Yes,
Modern
it is,
Gamer,
Jeff.
and all around most bearded man I know, Steve Wall. Steve, how are you today?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Just hanging out.
Fantastic.
Ready for episode 4?
Episode 4. Is this episode 4?
Episode 4.
That is a milestone. That's episode 1, Joe. This is episode 4. So our earlier quotes, as we were testing the audio, is more important, more accurate, I would say. Originally, I wanted to name every episode like a Star Wars episode or a Star Wars movie and have it be like some random title, but Steve vetoed that, despite his passionate love for Star Wars. Before we jump into the episode and the topics, don't forget to check us out at all the places. Obviously, ModernGamer.com, where you can find all of our written content and links to some other cool stuff. You can also find our podcast on YouTube, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and all the other places where podcasts live. We don't have a YouTube URL because apparently we don't have the clout for that. So as soon as you guys get us more subscribers, we can about, I think,
100.
We're at 14 subscribers right now, which is way more than I think we have any right to have at this current state in our 4 episodes. But
14 more than we deserve.
That means we are only 86 subscribers away from having the ability to call ourselves youtube.com/moderngamer. But you can also check us out at Twitter, Modern Gamer USA, and Instagram, Modern Gamer USA. Steve, do you have any other places where we're living on the web these days?
I mean, we're on Facebook as well.
On Facebook.
So
if you want to see your aunt's racist comments and then check out some gaming stuff, you can check us out on Facebook.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was just gonna say, if you're, back to that, we need 86 left. If you're a real fan of U14, which I'm sure it's us and whatever extra accounts that we have followed us again.
And our dads who are supporting us.
Yeah. But if you're real fans, just make a bunch of accounts and just follow us. Super dope.
real fans would have
legitimate traffic.
shelled us out to their.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Real fans would have already hawked us out to their family and friends by now. So we'll start the show. We got a couple of very interesting topics that are some pretty big news events that happened in the world of gaming the last month. But before we do that, let's start by talking about what games we're playing. So we'll start with Steve. What are you playing right now, man?
Right now, I started playing the Star Wars Squadrons game on the 2nd when it came out just 2 days ago. So I've been playing that a little bit. I've probably got only 2, maybe 3 hours logged in it so far. I'm liking it. I think I want to get a joystick just so I can have an easier time of moving around. I did notice that it says that it's VR compatible as well. So That's got me looking into maybe a low-end VR headset. Just because I don't know if I could justify the really expensive gaming headset for a 20-hour game.
Sure.
But that I'm playing that. Probably going to be playing that a lot more. I'm hoping to finish it relatively soon. Jumped into Outer Worlds. It's an older game, but it's it's fun. I mean, it's a really good time. It's an open, I guess it's open world, I suppose you could say.
It's gotten compared to games like Fallout, I think.
Yeah,
what is that one like? I've only heard of it.
Yeah, it's got Fallout kind of vibes. I've got just under 10 hours, I think, into it. I just picked it up on Xbox Game Pass. And it kind of gives me some Fallout vibes. There's a lot of player choices, very RPG heavy, from a dialogue perspective. I believe it's made by Obsidian.
Yep. That sounds correct.
Yeah, the game, it actually kind of popped up because I was looking forward to Outriders, one of their new games that's coming up, and I just looked up Obsidian Games because I couldn't remember what Outriders was called, and I saw Outer Worlds, so that kind of got me looking into that one, see kind of what their style is like. Kind of reminds me of BioWare-ish. I wouldn't say like it's like Mass Effect, but it's kind of like Mass Effect, in the sense that you're flying around to different planets and whatnot, and you have a bunch of companions, and it's just very RPG.
Sure.
The one thing that
Awesome.
is kind of a funny thing that some people apparently have like got upset about with it is you can't romance any of the characters, like you can in like some typical BioWare like Mass Effect, Star Wars, and stuff like that games. And Obsidian has like commented, been like irritated about it, like, we don't want you to be able to romance the characters. We want them to be valuable for other reasons, not for you just to flirt with and hit on. So that's just kind of funny. But so far it's good. The story it's interesting. You're on you basically start off, you were stuck in basically a space pod, in a hibernation pod, on a spaceship that got damaged or en route to whatever planet you're supposed to be going to. Some scientist guy breaks into that ship and like breaks you out and sends you down to the planet that you're there, or that you're hovering above. There's a little town called Edgewater that's there, that you just kind of landed, and you start doing work and start building up like reputation with the different groups that are in the city and outside of the city and whatnot. One thing I will say is it seems like you can pretty much do whatever you want, from a you can kill anybody type of a deal, because the main dude in Edgewater that is kind of running like the town in the beginning, he seems like he's just big boss, like CEO guy, treats everybody like a statistic or like a number, and I just got really shitty vibes with him. So I just was like, I wonder if I could kill this guy. And I pulled my gun out, and he's like, "Oh, you think you're tough waving that thing around?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I just assumed it wouldn't let me shoot him because he's like the main quest in the beginning. And yeah, no, I iced him. Like,
Murked.
boom. And then his two guards, I waxed them. And you get a companion, your very first companion you get when you're talking to him originally, and she's there with you, and she just looks at you and she goes, "You just killed him. What in the world?" And you have like a bunch of different dialogue options. So I was like, "Well, he was rude to you," and she's like, "You got some twisted way of showing chivalry, man. Like, we need to get the hell out of here." So I was like, "Holy shit!" So I did save it right before that, just because I was like, just in case, I actually can kill this guy. So I just reloaded it and didn't do that. But I was just like, "Whoa, this is." I like the fact that I could just do whatever the hell I want. It reminded me kind of, it was kind of Fable-ish in that way, where you could just murk anybody. And I played a little bit of Star Citizen the last, I'd say, 2 or 3 weeks with my cousin. That is a game that has been in alpha forever, and it'll probably be in alpha or beta forever.
My brother-in-law was talking about that game like 4 years ago when he was introducing me to it. I was like, "Yeah, it sounds great, but it sounds way too complicated."
It's very, very, very bold. It's beautiful as far as graphics are concerned. It's got a pretty hefty amount of bugs still, and random crashes and whatnot. But it's a lot of fun if you're just trying to chill and just like fly around space and do mining. And there is some PvP and stuff like that, and you can be a bounty hunter and whatnot and go after other player characters and stuff. But I don't know that, at least in my experience so far, it hasn't been stable enough to really build up like hours and hours and hours at a time playing. So you get a couple hours before it crashes, and I'm sure you can go back in and play again right afterwards, but it respawns you back at whatever last station you started at. So if you're really far away from it when you die, it's just it kind of sucks the fun out of that part of it. So you just play it as long as you can before it crashes, and then you just move on to something else. But yeah, that's what I'm playing for now.
Nice. Good to hear. Joe, I know you've been digging into some retro stuff recently. What have you been playing, man?
Yes, I have. So let's see. I've been playing on the Genesis Mini. I've been playing Shining Force a whole bunch, which is super fun. I had never even heard of this game until I booted up my Mini, and then looking at it, apparently it was a pretty well received and um, well loved RPG, and it's even one of those to the point now where there's a couple people on YouTube that review games that will. Um, that still claim that it's their favorite RPG. So it's pretty neat, just in terms of tone and in terms of the some of the world building choices. Like, it's kind of a cross between Final Fantasy Tactics and like I was gonna say Fire Emblem, but I guess those are pretty similar games. So it's not really a cross. I guess it's more like Sega's version, um, or I guess answer to probably based on when it was released, probably Fire Emblem.
Well,
Um,
well, when it was released, probably closer to Final Fantasy, because the Genesis did not have a lot of RPGs, but the few that it did have were pretty solid based on my memory of.
yeah,
Where if you were a JRPG guy growing up in the 16-bit era, you probably had a Super Nintendo because that's where
yep,
Square dominated
yeah, that's
on Nintendo with that. But
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yep, they had Super Mario RPG and a couple Final Fantasy titles. So, yeah, exactly. This came out 1992, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, 1992. Turn-based tactics role-playing game. Yeah, so it's pretty cool, but and it has some things that I had never even encountered. I mean, I guess I'm not the most seasoned RPG fan, but I've definitely been around the block with them, and I've beaten my fair share. But this one has playable characters that are centaurs and birdmen, and there's like anthropomorphic rats that are like a race like sentient rat people. It's pretty imaginative. I mean, I'm kind of impressed considering this came out when back in like 1992, and I've never heard of it. And it seems like it was something that was probably pretty seminal. So I'm just really digging it. But it's kind of slow going just because I mean I don't get a ton of free time, and then the free time I do get generally just especially with uh, having children and stuff like that, they want to do other stuff, which is totally fine. It's totally fine. But it's just really fun, and I'm loving every minute of it. The soundtrack is awesome. The sprite work is just it. I mean, it blows my mind. So it's a ton of fun. I definitely recommend it. Um, the first game in the series, I think, is actually called Shining in the Darkness. But then they did a little bit of a, I don't know if it'd be a rebrand or more of a kind of a pivot. But then there's Shining Force 1, Shining Force 2. I think there's even a third one. But the first game's technically Shining in the Darkness. So that's going to be next, just because I'm having such a good time with this. And then I also have Shining Force 2. So I've got like 3 games kind of in that whole world ready to go. And I'm having a ton of fun. Also on the Genesis Mini, working on Golden Axe. So I wanted to kind of just spend a sec talking about this game because I know everybody's heard of it, but it's like a lot deeper than I had ever realized. And I had, of course, never read the manual for the game because prior to getting my Genesis, I had only ever played it as an arcade title, and it's a lot deeper than you kind of think. Like it sort of seems like it's like a move, jump, attack, and then there's a magic button, but I didn't know that the characters actually have stats. They're like hidden and they're not something you can look up in any way. But so there's a red barbarian, there's a blue. Or I'm sorry, there's a red Amazon who's a girl, a blue barbarian that's a the main dude, and then there is like a green dwarf character, and they have names, which I think is awesome because I don't know who who even knows these names, but the characters have names, and the blue barbarian, he's kind of like the Mario, right? His magic power is middling, his melee attack is middling, but he has longer reach than the Amazon, shorter reach than the dwarf. The dwarf has the best melee and the worst magic, and the Amazon has the shortest melee reach, but she has the strongest magic. You can also do a special attack by pressing attack and jump at the same time, as well as being able to do a jump attack by pressing jump followed by attack. So I don't want to get too much into it, but that's like it's a lot more technical than I had realized, and so I'm having a blast playing through that as well. And then the last thing I'll say about Genesis Mini is I'm also playing the Lost Vikings with my 6-year-old son actually. So he really loves that. That's a game that was made by Interplay and Silicon and Synapse actually, which is the company that became Blizzard. This was before Diablo. This was before Warcraft, Orcs and Humans. They had this one, and then they also had Rock and Roll Racing, which I don't know if it came out on the Sega or not, but
Rock and Roll Racing, I think, was on both Genesis and SNES, but
sure.
I think because of the power of the SNES audio hardware, which was provided by Sony right before they became Nintendo's biggest enemy by
Awesome. Yeah.
definitely betrayal. But yeah, the Rock and Roll Racing, a lot of the audio sounded a lot crisper and a lot closer to the because it was basically like they were mimicking popular rock and roll songs
Right.
like George Thorogood and
Right.
CDC and stuff.
Yeah.
But the audio sounded really good on the Super Nintendo, but lacked a little bit on the Genesis. So it was on both. But that game's a blast, actually, if you've ever played it.
I haven't played it. No, I need to get it.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been super fun, just kind of seeing some of the influence there, and then of course again, and I'm probably just gonna say this like until the end of time on the Genesis, but the sprite work is just awesome. It's so cool to see like what they were able to do with, because I mean, if you had a Sega growing up, maybe you aren't in this camp, but I didn't. I got into the video game world kind of late, I think, as compared to a lot of people our age, or a lot of people might be into this podcast. Um, and so it's just interesting to see, like, I mean, because that's essentially, like paint. I mean, it's like MS Paint. It's like drawings, really, that are like it's fucking cool. It's super good. And I don't know, I part of me kind of prefers it a little bit, just because I'm so used to like the high definition computer graphics and stuff, and it's really impressive to kind of see what they were able to do with a lot less. Um so I'm really digging Lost Vikings. It's a kind of a puzzle platformer, and you can only control one Viking at a time unless you're playing with a friend, and then you can control two of the three at a time. One of them can run fast and jump, and he can do kind of a headbutt. One of them has a bow and a sword, and then the other one has a shield. And the other two cannot jump. So you'd think in a platformer that would be kind of, required equipment, but in Lost Vikings, only one of them can. So you have to work together to solve the puzzles and get through levels. It actually reminded me a lot of Trine, which there's Trine 1, Trine 2, and Trine 3. I think there might be a Trine 4 at this point, but that's a really cool game series as well. It's obviously a lot more recent, and I played the first two on Steam. So if you're into Lost Vikings, check out Trine if you haven't. But that's super fun. And then moving away from Sega, sticking to retro, I am finally trying to complete Ocarina of Time Master Quest on my 3DS, which has been an absolute blast. It's kicking the shit out of me, but it's really refreshing because I had a lot of these temples like on rote, just like, oh, here's what you do, here's what you do, totally different Master Quest, and it's to the point where like, I mean, the other night, God, I think 45 minutes like in one room, and I'm not even kidding you. I couldn't figure it out, and it's one of the things I love about Zelda is when you finally do get it, you're like, wow, I'm an idiot. But then you also have this feeling of accomplishment, right? You're like, there's no way it's that simple. Or sometimes it's like, who would have ever figured this out, right? But so that's kind of the love hate that I have with Zelda. So I love that game. It's obviously amazing. And then just like always, playing a lot of Vermintide. I just got back into Heroes of the Storm, which was neat, and Pokemon. But we don't need to talk about that. Crown Tundra's coming out 2 months. Get it.
Which one's coming out in 2 months?
The Crown Tundra, the second DLC for Sword Shield.
Gotta go.
I guess I had to probably play Sword and Shield first before I go get into DLCs.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
what are you doing with your life,
You
Jeff?
can beat it pretty quick. So
I'm playing Pokemon, that's for sure.
Goddamn sure.
I guess I'll go last. Speaking of retro, I've actually been playing a lot of games from the 90s recently. So Tony Hawk 1 and 2 came out, and I got that about a couple days after it came out. I think I got it maybe a week after it released. And that game is a blast, man. It reminded me how much I loved playing the first two games, and it's such a since I think Tony Hawk 4, the series has obviously been mired in kind of some positives and some negatives, but it's really been inconsistent since Tony Hawk 4. And I played the hell out of the first 4 games, up until I was well, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I played the hell out of the first 4 games.
Played them a lot.
So and I think I picked up like 1 or 2 of the later, like the Tony Hawk Underground games and stuff like that were They got pretty good reviews, but they weren't really something that I was kind of into. I think I had lost a little bit of luster for the franchise at that point. And this game is a total blast, man. Like it really is a like you can tell Vicarious Visions really loves the Tony Hawk games because it's basically a full recreation. It's not like they just threw all the levels together and said, this is Tony Hawk. They literally have full separate campaigns for the first two games, with full achievements for each one, and everything about
awesome.
the first two games has been lovingly redone. The graphics are fantastic. The gameplay is exactly like you remember if you played those games growing up. They added some of the moves that came along in later games, but you can also opt into just the traditional controls or the traditional move sets from those games. So like the revert move that came in Tony Hawk 3, and like the wall jump move that came in Tony Hawk 4. Those things weren't available in the first two games, but they added them in, as well as like the manuals that made their debut in the second game you can do in the first game. So
Nice.
it's super cool. I got through the first two games.
Can you do a 900?
I can do 900. It's actually not the most difficult move to do in the game, unlike in real life, where it is far more of a challenge for Mr. Hawk.
Yeah.
No, it's a super cool game, and the soundtrack really has me back. Like I remember, a few of the songs that I used to get stuck in my head when I was a kid, and like it's cool. And they added
Blink 182.
Is it the old school stuff?
There's actually no Blink 182 in Tony Hawk soundtracks, but
wow.
Yeah, it's the entirety of the first two soundtracks. I think there's like one or two tracks they couldn't get.
Like Sum 41 and stuff like that in there.
No Sum 41. Some MXPX. They had some Vandals.
Probably got some Pennywise in there.
Pennywise is not in there. Superman though by Goldfinger's in there, so they do have some good ska stuff in there.
Yeah.
But they added some new tracks too, so there's quite a few.
Rose a race car driver.
So overall, the soundtrack is amazing. Those first two games had some of the best, like non-orchestral, non-traditional soundtracks. Just kind of exactly what it sounds like. So I'm playing that, and then I got the Super Mario 3D All Stars collection, which a lot of people seem to hate, but I never got a chance to. So Joe skipped out on the Genesis era. I never played. I didn't have a 64 growing up, so I missed out on games like Mario 64, and I'm playing that right now, and it's fucking terrible. It's you can tell where the series was going, and like I skipped quite a few Nintendo consoles, as I got older and kind of veered away from them until fairly recently, but. Mario Odyssey being one of my absolute favorite games of the last 10 years, probably in my top 5. You can really tell where like the genesis of Mario Odyssey was, being birthed in Mario 64. And you can tell there's a lot of ideas in that game that were probably way ahead of their time. But that generation of consoles, man, the 5th gen, PlayStation and 64 era is just not like... It's not as good as we remember, right? We have a lot of nostalgia for that era, and there are still games that I think they held up pretty well. Like Ocarina of Time, I think holds up pretty well.
Yeah.
There's a couple. Symphony of the Night, I think is still one of the best games ever made. But like Mario 64, it's not a bad game by any means. I lovingly say it's a piece of shit, but it's just they're like. They didn't know how to control 3D games yet. And so this was them trying to for the first time. And for being a first effort, you have to give it kudos. You have to give it credit. But there are some fucking frustrating platforming segments in a game that is entirely platforming. Like
I remember that.
Moving Mario, just a little bit to the right so that you were trying to angle yourself better for a certain section. Literally turns him around the opposite direction and flings him off of a
man, I remember
jumping or shooting yourself out of the cannon and just sliding over something.
There's a level called Tall Mountain, and it's like literally, every level in Mario 64 is surrounded by a infinite death loop, which is stupid. But Tall Mountain specifically has these parts where it's like you have to get to this mushroom. It's called the Lonely Mushroom, and then you have to get to it to get a star. And you have to get into a cannon and fire.
That was my nickname back in high school.
Tall mushroom?
idiot.
The lonely mushroom.
Yeah, lonely definitely was what you were. So, anyways, I died like 6 times just trying to get to this one thing, and the only reason is because you have to like shoot yourself out of a cannon to get to it, and it's the dumbest thing ever. But I'm determined to get all 120 stars in this game, even if it takes me looking up a YouTube video for every single one of them to figure out how to do it. But I'm excited to try the other games too. I never played Mario Sunshine, which I am excited to try, and then Mario Galaxy I played just briefly on the Wii, but I never completed it or really got that far, so I'm excited for that.
Why did
Uh,
it not have Mario RPG? Are we ever going to see that game again?
It's Mario 3D All Stars, so it's basically they consider everything 64 and on to be the 3D games. So there's only 3
Okay, that's
titles,
fair, sure.
which is one of the bigger criticisms of a lot of fans is that they skipped Mario Galaxy 2, which a lot of people actually like better than Mario Galaxy 1. But it's pretty much all the 64 game, the Mario Galaxy or Mario Paint, because there's painting elements in it. Mario Sunshine, and then
Sunshine was, I think, the GameCube one,
yep,
right?
Sunshine was the GameCube
Yeah.
title, and this is the first time it's been re-released since the GameCube actually. So, Mario RPG, I know this is kind of a tangent, but the game will probably never get re-released in any official capacity because it's made by Square and they don't get along with Nintendo that well, and probably not. It'd probably be one of those things where maybe in 20 years they'll release a anniversary, but if
Well,
we're not getting a sequel, we're not getting a re-release.
I mean, Smash just got Minecraft Steve as a fighter, so we need
Yeah.
to get Gino. We need to get Gino in Smash. It needs to happen.
Gino's never making it in Smash.
He will. He
I
will.
don't think he will. And then the last game, I've been playing Marvel's Avengers. I got that for my buddy as a gift for my birthday, and I've been playing it. It's really good. It does remind me a lot of Destiny. It's basically just a games as a service.
Does it have Ant-Man and Wasp?
Not yet.
Oh, but it has a lot of other bugs.
There are a ton of bugs, actually. It is a buggy fucking mess. Actually, we played it Friday. We got in a small group of us, went and doing some quests in there, and we had to restart one of the levels 3 or 4 times.
That sucks.
Just because
It looks pretty awesome though.
you have to beat certain enemies and they'll get stuck in walls and shit. You can tell that it is a game that is going to get worked on over time as long as people keep putting money into it. But I'm just excited to have a game like Destiny. I know the grindy elements can get kind of lame at times, and the whole games as a service thing where it's like pump your hours into it or pump your dollars into it. Pick which poison you want and guzzle it down. But I don't know. There's something about it that I really like. I keep telling myself I really miss playing Destiny. And the only reason I don't go back to it at this point is because I don't have anybody. I'm far behind, but I don't have anybody to consistently play it with. Like the group that I used to play with, they all just abandoned playing it. And it's one of those games that is a lot more fun playing with people. If you get Avengers is the same way. I can play the single player and probably have fun for 20 minutes, but it's going to be the most fun when my buddies are hopping on there with me and we're going and we're picking our favorite characters. And I mean, the combat loop is great. It's definitely worth checking out. The graphics, when they're not glitching the fuck out, are fantastic. And the amount of Marvel related content shoved into it, like all the different character unlocks and costumes and stuff that you unfortunately have to pay for to see most of. But the amount of love they gave to the characters in the universe of Marvel is pretty good. I would say honestly it's second only to Spider-Man maybe, which Spider-Man is probably going to be the best Marvel based game for a long time. It's that good, but this is a really close second in terms of loving attention. The only thing I have about it from a presentation standpoint is it really does kind of feel like they leaned on the MCU for some of their character designs rather than leaning on more of the comic kind of designs of the characters. It's definitely kind of an amalgamation. You have some of the characters who definitely have their comic book-esque looks, but it definitely feels like the Kroger brand MCU, right? Like the guy that looks like the character model for for Captain America, he kind of looks like a generic brand off-brand the hell's the guy's name? Chris Evans. and it's a big AAA game, so they every major voice actor in any game you've heard of is in this. You know, they've got Nolan North is Tony Stark, which is super weird because it basically sounds like Nathan Drake is Tony Stark, and I fucking can't I can't compartmentalize it. Like, I'm just so used to hearing him as Nathan Drake, and I'm like,
Yeah.
this is weird. And Troy Baker, is in everything, and he plays the Hulk in this, he's Bruce Banner.
He's Booker DeWitt from
Um,
Shrek Infinite.
he's everything. But
Yeah.
he's Joel in Last of Us. He was the Joker in Arkham Origins, doing a fantastic young version of Mark Hamill's Joker. Troy Baker might be the most prolific and hardest working guy in gaming right now in terms of voice acting, and he's a fucking chameleon. But he's just really weird. Of all the characters I would have expected him to play in the Avengers, he plays Bruce Banner, and I'm just like, it's interesting. It's an interesting choice. I liked it. But so that's pretty much where I'm at right now. Just playing those three. I'm going to start up Ghostbusters because it is spooky season, and the next episode of Modern Gamer Backlogvania is going to be Ghostbusters because it's a game that's been on my backlog since it came out, and I did pick it up and play it, I think, earlier this year, but I need to finish it so I can talk about some spooky stuff for October. So that's the games we're playing. It's a lot of shit you just heard. We'll just talk about. So now let's talk about some more stuff. Speaking of which, the biggest news I think since we last talked, outside of all the new consoles that don't have any new games to come along with them, are Microsoft might have just secured Xbox's name for the next 10 years or so by buying Zenimax Studios, all their subsidiary companies. So in a pretty bold move, and I think something that I don't think really anybody saw coming, they picked up Zenimax, which means they now own Bethesda, id, Arcane Studios, Machine Games, Tango Gameworks, Alpha Dog Games, Roundhouse Studios. Most of those which you probably haven't heard of, but the big three being Bethesda, id, and Arcane. So now they own such franchises as Fallout, Elder Scrolls, Doom, Wolfenstein, Dishonored. Those are their big IP, and now with all the potential to be exclusive to Microsoft brand. So we might in the future see future Elder Scrolls titles be exclusive to Xbox. Same thing with Doom, Wolfenstein. That's a pretty big deal. What are your guys' thoughts?
I mean, bold for sure. I remember I literally just woke up one morning and it was like all over Twitter and all over YouTube, and
I tweeted to you, didn't? Or I didn't tweet. Maybe
you might have tagged me in it. I was like, I didn't hear a damn word about this at all. Not that I know everything by any means, but I try to stay up on things, and I didn't even know that they were talking about it. So it's a huge move for them, in my opinion. I think it just from like Game Pass and xCloud and all that stuff, it makes that value even potentially bigger and better, because Microsoft hasn't been shy at putting like first party titles quickly on Game Pass. It definitely secures them some ability to do console exclusives, or it allows them to potentially either build some sort of relationship more so with Sony, and it even make money off of Sony from a game's perspective, depending on what way they want to do it, because they are gonna apparently allow some of their previously negotiated or talked about exclusives or available on PlayStation games to be, for that to continue to ride out. They're not, voiding any of that stuff. And then I think they said anything moving forward is going to be on a case-by-case basis. They'll review it. But I mean, it definitely, for games like the Elder Scrolls 6, and I think, what is it, Starfield, two like highly anticipated Bethesda games that are supposed to be coming out within hopefully the next year or two. That one, it's gonna piss a lot of people off if they're console exclusives. However, I mean, that's a console selling game or games that piece, in my opinion, will definitely make that happen. Now, if they were available at launch, sure, that would be it. But in the future, it definitely makes things look really, really good for Microsoft and Xbox's future.
Sure.
In my opinion.
I remember one of the things we talked about, and I think it might have been our first episode, was how that is probably the biggest thing holding Microsoft back from staying in the game long term is just the lack of console exclusives. Because I think at one point we were even discussing how there was a lot of rumors about them potentially buying WB Games because Warner Brothers mentioned wanting to sell off that part of their that part of their company, and we all kind of agreed that Microsoft doesn't really have that many killer exclusives. So I don't see them playing nice for a long time. They might have some previously established contracts with some of these other companies to let their games and their IP be out there, but I don't see that being a long-term strategy for them, because if they want to compete with Sony, like Sony owning, they own Naughty Dog, they have Santa Monica Studios, like there's a lot of big exclusive shit on Sony's console, and I think that's gonna be a differentiator, right? You mentioned yourself Game Pass, that's a big thing that Microsoft's leaning towards. If they can safely say that, hey, if you want to play the next Elder Scrolls game, you got to do it on either your computer or you got to be doing it on an Xbox. Like none of this PS5 bullshit. You want to play Doom 4 or Doom 3, whatever it's going to be called. Fucking get a PC or get an Xbox, Xbox Series X. Like that could cement it for some people, right? Like, I mean, they didn't have a ton of killer apps, and now they've got at least 3 big ones, right? 3, 4 if you count doing Wolfenstein, Elder Scrolls, and Fallout. Like those are big fucking franchises, and
absolutely.
I don't see them playing nice for future. At least not with Sony, right? They might not care about Nintendo having Doom, right, or Wolfenstein, and continue to work with that, but I could easily see them pulling the plug with Sony and saying, hey, you want us to give you Elder Scrolls, you better let us have a port of fucking Last of Us 2.
Yeah, absolutely. Work with us, or we won't work with you. I could totally see that happening.
Joe, I know you're a little bit more of a PC centric guy when you're not fiddling around with your Genesis Classic, reliving your halcyon days of being a kid. What are your thoughts, man?
Well, I don't have too many of them. With regard to this topic, I mean, I know that I remember when the Xbox first kind of came out, and of course it was Microsoft hardware. But I just remember how, maybe not shocked, but I found it, I guess interesting is a good word, to realize that there were actually Microsoft game studios, and then of course Halo got big and Fable got big and a couple other titles. But I just remember kind of thinking like it was, at the time I felt like it was strange, and of course now we know that's, there's just a household name. But I just remember at the time it's like, why? They've already got Windows. They're already literally in every home in America for the most part. Like
we could
like
be there
what?
twice.
Why? Right? So, and but it worked out. And obviously I'm a huge Fable fan. So I don't know. The only kind of name, you had said Zenimax. My first thought was, okay, that's Elder Scrolls
ESO.
Online.
Yep.
Yeah, yep. But I wasn't actually aware that that they were like a parent for Bethesda. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's, I don't know if it spells doom could really for anybody, but
It
I
spells Doom
Yeah.
very specifically.
can't
It's
spell
funny.
doom without ID.
It's funny because there's a little bit of gaming history. One of my favorite YouTube series is Did You Know Gaming, and I've seen the Doom episode on that about a dozen times. And when Doom originally came out, it was so popular and so widely installed. It was on more computers than Microsoft Windows.
Sick.
It actually was. So at the time, it was on more computers than Windows, and so Bill Gates actually had contemplated buying its software just so he could basically own, the biggest piece of software in computers next to his own operating system. But that's actually what kind of segued them to work with it to port Doom to Windows. And Doom is actually one of the biggest reasons why basically gaming on PCs it became a thing because
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Bill Gates' desire to get Doom onto Windows was what cemented Windows as a gaming platform. So I just think it was
Huh.
interesting. There's actually if you look hard enough on YouTube, you can find there's a promo for Doom where Bill Gates actually he's like it looks like the Doom game is playing. It's like level EM1, and it's playing normally, and you actually see Bill Gates's face instead of the Doom guy's face, and then it stops, and Bill Gates like walks out from as if he's like was the character. So he walks out in third person. He like turns around. He's wearing like a trench coat, and he's carrying a shotgun. And he's like, it's like, man, these games are getting so realistic now, and it's super weird, and it's even weirder and probably a little bit dark when you kind of consider like a lot of the rumors that were surrounding Doom and Columbine and like the whole trench coat mafia
Sure.
thing, like how like it probably wasn't the best thing in hindsight to do, but so it's interesting that we finally end up with Microsoft ended up buying it. It might have been 3 decades later than we thought,
30
but
years later.
they ended up doing it. So yeah,
That's a
Yep.
long game right there.
So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, man. And speaking of which, speaking of history of Doom, and I think you had told me about this actually. And I mean, I think this is probably an okay time to plug something. But anybody that's interested, if this sounds cool, on Netflix, there's a special called High Score. It's definitely pretty cool. I think it's 5 or 6 episodes.
Score is amazing. I busted through all
Right?
5 episodes.
Yeah,
I really
they're like 45 minutes or an hour each. It's crazy, and you're gonna. I mean, it starts with um, Atari, and you go all the way through, and you'll obviously hear about Lord British and John Carmack and Id and all those dudes, and Nolan Bushnell, obviously. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they have
check it out. It's dope.
John Romero is featured pretty heavily in the Doom episode, if I recall,
Yes,
and he's a fucking weirdo. He's super weird. Both John Carmack and if you know your Doom history, John Carmack and John Romero are basically like the two biggest like
the Johns.
brains of Doom, and
Yes,
fucking John Romero's a fucking weirdo, man. He's I actually watched him play Doom Eternal. So like he was just like, oh, I'm just gonna get on and stream me playing Doom Eternal, and he's fucking terrible at it because he's in his probably late 50s or mid 50s or whatever now, but like watching him play a modern FPS after developing basically the original FPS is hilarious because he's so bad at it. It's just like, dude, man. But he enjoyed it, and he's
Right.
super thrilled, I think, about the acquisition, and he doesn't have hands in the game anymore. But yeah, super great series. It reminds me a lot of the toys that made us and the movies that made us. So Netflix, if you like any kind of entertainment, Netflix has a nice little docu series for you to marathon through, and they just don't put out enough episodes, man. I could have done 10 more episodes of High Score easily. I love that series.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
So that's our thoughts on Zenimax getting bought by Microsoft. I think that I got one last question at the end of the episode that I want to ask you guys about next gen, but like real quick, just kind of as a preview, if you weren't playing on PC and you were kind of deciding between the next gen console, would this acquisition have brought you any closer to going with the Xbox over PlayStation? I don't think any of us in this group are super early adopters when it comes to going next gen. We've all got, I think, a good mix at home, but like at some point, I think one of us will probably pick up either a PS5 or a Series X, and probably at least for the the immediate future, probably only getting one of the two. So I know for me, looking at the exclusives at the beginning and kind of looking at what Microsoft had versus what Sony had from a game standpoint, I was heavily leaning towards PS5. But I think this change, even though really the only series that I would heavily play would be Doom, I definitely think this is a game changer a little bit. How about you guys?
I would probably agree. I mean, I think just for me personally, this is not a statement on whether or not they're good, but just for me personally, I think Sony owned IPs that I'm like really willing to throw money at. I think there's like one, and like all the other ones are
God of War.
like, and it's kind of come up before, right? Like, because obviously I'm gonna play Elder Scrolls, gonna try to play Fable. Obviously,
Yep.
I don't need to say that again. Fable, and yeah, Doom. If we ever see another Wolfenstein, that'd be dope. So, I mean, I think to your really, I think kind of to the heart of your question, Jeff, is I don't know that it like, well, forget about PS5, because I probably honestly was gonna go Microsoft anyways, or I mean, but yeah, Microsoft Xbox. But this is just more reason to do so. And then like you said before, I do primarily. I mean, I tend to kind of flip flop. There's seasons, I guess, where I'm kind of more console versus more PC, but I am primarily PC at least at the moment. So yeah, that's uh, definitely probably where I'm going to remain.
Steve just laughs in PC. That's what he does.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't hear you over my frame rate.
Oh, you're gonna get 4K 30 FPS? Yay!
Yay, good for you.
No, I mean,
Console plebs.
yeah, I mean, I'll buy one of the new ones. I don't know which one, but it'll be for whatever. It'll probably be the PlayStation.
It'll be my pretty corner for next to my PC.
It'll be like my Xbox is literally sitting over here, not plugged in or anything. It's literally just there collecting dust.
Steve's gonna get a Series X so he can stand his water bottle on top of it next to his desk. Yeah,
he needs a new doorstop for his breezeway.
Just sit it down there. That's funny. No, I mean, I'll actually probably buy the
one
PlayStation.
extra. Am I right?
Yeah, I'll probably buy the PlayStation just because there's really no reason for me to get the Xbox if I can play everything on the PC. And I'm pretty confident that you can, because Game Pass Ultimate and all that good stuff, or Game Pass for PC.
right.
So I think it would be a colossal waste of money for me to buy an Xbox X. I'll probably buy the controller just so I have one of the newer controllers if I decide I want to play, any of the PC games with a controller, like any racing games or anything like that. It's just, exactly. That's the only thing that I use mine for. But I'll probably end up buying the new PlayStation for exclusives like God of War and pretty much God of War.
And Final Fantasy 7.
And Final Fantasy.
Part 2.
Yeah.
And 3, and 4, and 5.
Last of Us.
And The Last of Us. I mean, again, there's a handful of them, and that will be it. And I won't play any. I'll probably never even turn it on other than when I get an itch to play one of those games, because I just don't care. So I think that we'll see. And I mean, PlayStation has already said that, or Sony has already said that they're going to toy around with the idea of, or they're not going to toy around. They're considering what PlayStation console exclusives they're going to allow to port over to Steam and places like that, because they saw the success with Horizon Zero Dawn, sold a crap ton, and they're like, oh hey, people on PC like to play PlayStation games. Duh.
Weird.
We knew that. Welcome to the show. But I think that I would rather see, Sony just start doing that, and I'll give them my money through Steam, than having to buy a, $400 thing that's just going to sit on the desk and not do anything most of the time. But when it comes to Xbox, the original question that you asked, sorry for the rant. Yeah, I definitely think that this will sell more units for them. If somebody is going to pick a console, this certainly, I mean, from a certain, like, I guess, point of view, right? Like, you have to be an RPG type of a person, or gamer to want, or I guess not to want, but a lot of these games are massive, like, Western RPG franchises. And if that's your style of game, I think Xbox just told you which one you're gonna buy.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of big game franchises, and we talked about The Last of Us, and one of the big criticisms of The Last of Us, outside of not being on Steam for Steve to play because he hates his PlayStation 4, is that Last of Us 2 was heavily criticized for a lot of crunch towards the end of its development cycle to try to get the game out. As we know, that game got pushed back several times and had to have crunch to really make sure that it was available for its like third different release date since it was announced. And similarly, cdprojektred is calling for crunch prior to the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, which already also got delayed one time, right? At least once.
I think it was once. Yeah, I think it was
Just
only
one?
once. It might have been twice, but I'm pretty sure it was only once.
So they're implementing some mandatory 6-day work weeks going into the launch of Cyberpunk 2077, and they've been criticized for criticizing others for crunch and are now experiencing some backlash there. What are your thoughts there? What do you got? First of all, like, I think we all work, or have worked at times for companies where we've had to work a little bit extra. We've had some mandatory overtime. We're not going to say where we work, but we've all worked, I think, for the same company at one point and had some mandatory overtime to work there. There's always going to be times when you work a little bit extra. I know my job, I work 50 hours
Easy.
plus sometimes a week. And it sounds like gaming is no different, but gaming seems to be under the microscope, specifically now that everything is on the internet. Crunch is a really big deal. A lot of employees of these companies are citing just horrendous conditions. Some of it is probably a little bit overblown, right? Like, and you're always going to hear the worst examples from some people who have either an extra grind or maybe just had really bad experiences. But what are you guys' thoughts on crunch in general? First of all, does everybody understand what crunch means in the gaming industry?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to explain it for the viewers that may not, by all means, go right ahead.
Sure. I'll explain it for the layman. So basically, as a gaming company or developer gets closer to the launch of a big title, this typically happens a lot with big AAA companies. They start to implement crunch, which basically just means a lot more time spent working on the game. So they'll implement mandatory hour increases. In the case of cdprojektred, it sounds like they're doing 6-day work weeks. They might even be doing 7-day work weeks and just not saying it because it doesn't sound good, but they might be making people work. A lot of times, these crunch weeks or crunch development times don't include overtime pay that they promise their people, or they might be a little bit more flippant with what they promise their people in terms of additional pay. Sometimes these people are making themselves sick or ill by working so much. Obviously, there's going to be tons of stress involved, like, because you're not just, pumping in hours, at a call center somewhere. You're literally getting ready to launch a gigantic AAA title that is going to make or break your paycheck in some cases. I think a lot of these developers don't actually get paid until the game releases. So you're talking about people that potentially have very little funds available to them until the game releases, and they're working themselves sick to do it. So that is crunch in a nutshell. Obviously, a lot of gamers on Twitter and elsewhere are torn because they want to play these games desperately and they're super excited to get them, but then they also don't want to support these big companies by giving them money to repeat the cycle of crunch, right? So, as an example, Naughty Dog was pretty heavily criticized for crunch during the development cycle of Last of Us 2. A lot of people were like, you should not buy Last of Us 2, boycott Naughty Dog, don't buy their game, because if you do so, all you're doing is supporting their shitty habits, right? Their shitty practices of overworking their people and underpaying them for a game, right? It's probably the closest thing you could think of to people working in a sweatshop in the United States, right? Because a lot of these games are developed in the United States, but that's kind of where we stand with crunch. So now that I've explained it very poorly, what are your thoughts on it?
Thoughts on CD Projekt Red specifically with their crunch?
Say my thoughts are good on crunch, right? Because that would make you a bad person, and nobody.
I can't say what. What is?
You can say you're positive in favor of crunch.
Oh no, absolutely not.
It would make you a bad person.
Because that would make you That make you
Chat size on
terrible,
Twitter.
and you're awful, and you're canceled already. No, so I think that the idea of crunch sucks, right? I think that mandatory overtime is definitely not a fun thing for anybody that is an employee. At the same time, I don't think it's very fun for the people that make those decisions to do that. I don't think it's a very fun decision for them to have to make either. I think that with this instance specifically, obviously there's, and if I say obviously, but I'll elaborate. But with cdprojektred, I think it's a little bit different because they've criticized other companies for doing things like this. They've said things like they wouldn't do this type of thing. And it's just, it doesn't seem to be, or it's always been like this isn't CD Projekt Red style. At the same time, like they've already pushed this game back. They're under pressure to launch during holiday launches. I don't know if they have prior commitments to do so that makes it a little bit difficult for them to push back again, or if they can't because they have to be ready at the launch of holiday season, and they'd rather try to push for some extra crunch time versus releasing a half-baked game, which would suck if it launched full of bugs and stuff like that, because nobody enjoys those titles. And CD Projekt Red also has that reputation for them as well, where they don't generally release games that are full of bugs or are just unfinished. So I think it's a tough spot to be in for them, because I think that there's other things that are hinging on them launching at that time. Do I excuse them doing it? No, I don't think so. The whole, like, the way that it got out is there was a Bloomberg article that was written where there was an internal, basically, communication that was an email that was leaked, and that somebody reported on it. But essentially, they did say that they're going to be paying overtime. They're asking for 6-day work weeks. If there is a way to, do crunch, and like you have to do crunch for whatever reason, I would like to believe that CD Projekt Red would do it the best way possible for their people, just because of the way that company has always carried itself and presented itself, and the way that they've always been about their employees versus some other companies that have been widely criticized for crunch practices, as well as other things that they've been criticized for within their game studios. CD Projekt Red has always had a great reputation with that stuff. So I do believe that they will pay the overtime. There's not going to be any of that nonsense happening. And I think that it's a crappy situation to be in. But I don't know that there's a right answer there. If they have other obligations where they're supposed to have this game done because of Xbox and PlayStation and all these other commitments where they're supposed to be available as a launch title, that puts them in a different kind of a bind than I just want to get this game launched in March randomly. You know what I mean? So like, I'm trying to not take my bias for being like a big fan of CD Projekt Red and not like being pissed off about this, but at the same time, it's upsetting, and it's in my opinion, it's even more upsetting that it's known that they're doing this and they haven't come out with an official statement at this point as of recording, October 4th. They haven't come out and been like, hey, yes, we are implementing crunch. This is what we're doing to make sure that our people are taken care of, yada, yada, yada. I think something like that, one, it's just totally different than what anybody else has ever done. Everybody else just kind of avoids the negative publicity that is surrounding it and just eats it usually, and they go on their merry way. I would like to see CD Projekt Red do something different where they actually release a statement like, hey, we understand that we've always been against this. We're trying to limit it as much as possible, but this is what we need, yada, yada. This is what we're doing to take care of our people. I think that would just further show that they're just a different breed of game studio. But yeah, do I think that they deserve the same level of criticism as, EA or Ubisoft or Naughty Dog and its most recent, thing with Last of Us 2. No, I don't. Because they haven't. I mean, they're employees to my knowledge. I mean, I apologize if they are, and I'm just deaf to it. But they're not coming out screaming and complaining, and there doesn't seem to be any like unrest there from that group. It's just, it's that team is just, they're just different. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they just are afraid of saying anything. So there's that too.
Yeah, and I think you're always going to hear from the people who speak the loudest, right? Like you're always going to hear the greasiest wheel when it comes to or the squeakiest wheel when it comes to these types of stories, the greasiest wheel. But like with Last of Us, they got all the criticism. I think there was other controversies surrounding Last of Us when that game came out, so it's possible that was exacerbated by it. But I think this is just kind of calling out a bigger problem in the industry, which is crunch exists, and I think there's other shitty practices in the gaming industry. Speaking of calling out and promoting Netflix stuff that covers what we're talking about.
If you like entertainment.
If you like entertainment, Patriot Act, which was actually a recently canceled show, but Hassan Minaj, basically kind of like a Daily Show type show on Netflix. If you've never seen it, check it out. There's a lot of good stuff on there, but he covers a lot of different topics. He did a whole episode on crunch and other shitty practices in the gaming industry, and I think that's just we're starting to see as gaming becomes or as gaming has become the most prolific entertainment industry in our society today. It's bigger than movies. It's bigger than TV. More revenue is generated in the gaming industry than any other industry right now, and entertainment wise. And so as that industry continues to grow, our industry continues to grow. You're going to see more of these exposés, more of these interviews come out where these kind of unfair practices and these unruly workplace experiences are going to start to come to the light a little bit. And one of the things he talks about in the episode of Patriot Act where it's discussed is how gaming industry they're not unionized, and that could be a huge deal breaker is if these gaming companies start to move towards more unionized situations where these people can negotiate things like crunch and what their pay is going to be and that kind of thing. That might a lot of people criticize unions and say that they're not necessarily the best for everybody, but that could be a huge improvement in the gaming industry with these companies like cdprojektred and Naughty Dog, and if they have to work with gaming unions for their employees to be able to dictate how many hours they can work them and what kind of crunch schedules they can have and what they have to pay them, that could be a game changer, quite literally. But it is unfortunate that they are kind of being hypocritical here, calling out other companies in the past for having done it and then doing it themselves. But it is what it is, right? I think we kind of know that that's part of it, and I think maybe I'm just being dumb because I don't work in that industry and I've never had to work in that industry. But there's also a part of me that kind of feels like you had to have known a little bit what you were signing up for. Like you're about to release, one of the biggest titles, in of this console generation and potentially of the next console generation. It's going to be one of the biggest titles of the next 5 years, right? Like you have to know a little bit that you're not just going to be able to go and work a 38-hour work week and call it a day, right? Like you're going to have to probably put in some time, put in some effort, and you might not see your family for a couple of months, but once you do, man, you're going to have a pretty big paycheck and it's going to be real nice. And you can say, hey, I worked on fucking Cyberpunk 2077, right? Because more likely that game's not gonna be a a C tier AAA release, right? We're probably gonna see Game of the Year for that one for quite some time. So, Joe, what are your thoughts, man? You've been kind of quiet.
I think you guys covered most of everything I wanted to say. I mean, I don't know why we would want to look at this industry any differently than any other one. I mean, we've all been up against deadlines, and sometimes you have to get shit done. And it's not ideal to especially uh just as a leader. It's not something you want to do to kind of go to your people and say, hey, I need a lot more from you, and you're not necessarily getting anything extra from me, right? But it has to happen sometimes, I think. I mean, I know that's probably not a popular answer,
Yeah.
um, but I just think that's
Well,
the way it is. I
we
mean,
we say it has to happen because the game has to come out, and we're all selfishly waiting for this big game to come out. But like, are there situations where you wouldn't support a game, or so buy a game, or purchase a game because you heard about unfair practices, or is there ever a world that exists where Joe doesn't buy the next Witcher game, or Cyberpunk, because of what he's heard about the practices with CD
sure.
Projekt?
I mean, yeah, that possibility exists. I think if you're a studio and you're constantly asking your people for 8-hour weeks and 90 hours a week and stuff like that, like you probably, yeah, you that's too much, right? You need to, and I mean I don't know how likely it would be, but yeah, if you're in that position, yeah, I think you need to reevaluate. I think you need to you know take a look at what you're really doing, not making money. That's not the point. I mean, it's the point, but there are a lot of ways to do it,
Yeah.
right? And especially if it's like you're saying, Jeff, it's kind of the biggest industry there is at the moment, stroke now, like this is something that people are gonna have eyes and ears into, and it's something that is followed, very similarly to how the production and management of sports teams are followed, in the execution of those athletes you know careers and things like that. Like that's all tracked, and people like to chime in and weigh in, and that in and of itself is almost a hobby, right? And then I know, like you and I and like a lot of other people too, like with films and actors and writers and screenwriters and directors, we like to do that stuff too, right? Keep an eye on things, and if somebody maybe makes a move that we don't agree with, do you not watch the movie? Do you not buy a ticket? I mean, sure. I mean, if you're that way inclined, but I also think that it's a different thing to say that because CD Projekt's trying to get Cyberpunk released, and they're asking their people for, I don't know, I don't have a time frame, right? But they're asking them for some crunch for in order to facilitate getting that done. I think I don't necessarily think that that's unethical or terrible. I think if you're running your studio like that constantly, it can be. And also let's think of what we know about CD Projekt, right? Yeah, this is something that they've tried to not be about before, and so just for me personally, I'm looking at that going, well, maybe they've got a reason. Hopefully, all the same people are still in charge. Hopefully, they're going to do it as ethically as possible. Um, I don't know. I definitely understand. I think on this topic, like we want to be equitable and I don't like the word fair really in this situation, but we want to treat people fairly, right? It's just because it means different things to different people, right? If you're the employee, it'll mean something else than if you're the person whose name is on the fucking lease. But um, I don't necessarily see why there would be a big problem with this. Like I said, unless you are an organization that is just constantly doing this, then I think that's different.
I think
Yeah.
one last point on this before we move on to the next thing, and it's interesting because Joe, you kind of brought it up. Like we kind of do that same thing with movies, right? Like, actress recently got hit with some controversy, and do we not watch the movie? Do we not go pay to see the movie in theaters, or rent it on Vudu because we don't want to support it? The thing you have to remember too is yeah, that one actor or director that did that stupid thing, you're not supporting them, and by extension you're also not supporting
Everybody
the
else
hundreds of other people that
That whole
worked on
crew,
that
yes.
had to
that
crunch.
movie. So maybe you don't like what Quentin Tarantino said about cops, and so you tell your husband not to go watch
Hateful Eight.
Eight. But then what about the hundreds of other people and actors and actresses who maybe don't share that same thought process? Are you also hurting them? And I think when you look at it from a standpoint of gaming, right, like there's never going to be enough people who know about or care about crunch to not go buy a game, right, to support it. Like I don't ever think you'd have to hear some pretty heinous stories about a gaming company to completely have people just never buy another game from that company or studio. But on simultaneously, right? Like you have all these people who are being asked to crunch to get out Cyberpunk 2077. Imagine a world where everybody bands together and they don't buy Cyberpunk to try to prove it to CD Projekt Red, like, hey, you better not do this next time. But yeah, you hurt CD Projekt Red, but you also just probably put hundreds of people out
Out of a
of
job.
jobs for the next game because you didn't buy this one, right? And most people are scumbags and they're gonna pirate the game anyways, so they're gonna still play it, but they're just not gonna give money, and that's their way of sticking it to the
Well,
man.
and maybe it's a question of just the whole ecosystem, right? The whole culture of gaming. I mean, what really good is a pre-order? I mean, what is that effectively doing? That's not doing very much aside from causing a problem, right? Ensuring, look, hey, you said it would be released on December 10th, and now once you start collecting pre-orders, if in point of fact it gets delayed or for whatever reason can't be released on December 10th, now you've got a big problem. Whereas before, you really didn't have an issue. You're the studio producing the game. You're in effect the artist producing the art, and if you need more time to do it, I mean, in any other circumstance, no one will care.
Yeah.
So potentially, maybe this is just a I don't know, a swan song. I don't think it's quite that big of a deal, but maybe we need to think about pre-ordering. Maybe we need to think about
It's marketing.
kind of pull the lens back and you just look at it, as consumers, what do we is this a pressure that we're putting on them? Is this something that they think, we demand and we don't really demand it? Is there a conversation to be had there between the producer and the consumer? I don't know. I mean, I I think we talked about this previously, actually, because you were talking about Doom, and the Doom Marine helmet. Like what the last time we pre-ordered a game, right? I mean, there's invariably there's swag. Sometimes it's awesome swag. Sometimes it's cool, but it's like and then sometimes it's just I mean, for pre-ordering, and what that really is, I think it's just effectively like getting cash advances. I mean, it's free money, so it's a little. And again, I don't want to take us on too much of a tangent, but I just think pre-ordering is kind of something that we don't really need and doesn't really help anybody. I suppose maybe the
Well,
studios get a cash injection to help maybe finish whatever game that's being pre-ordered. But I mean, again, I just think it potentially causes more problems than it probably alleviates.
Yeah,
it's
I don't think it's an accurate indication of like popularity. Because not a lot of I mean maybe I'm wrong, right? But I just don't feel like it's the norm to pre-order games.
Yeah, why
Like
would you?
like I mean, I've pre-ordered games and I still pre-order some every now and again. There's no reason. Most of the time, it's just
It's
like I know I'm
it's
gonna buy
essentially just
this.
because
I'm just gonna do it.
I wish I could go buy it today and I
Yeah,
can't. So pre-ordering
exactly.
it makes me feel
Yeah,
like I can.
and I mean, I guess like I know I have the money for it now. Which if you think that might be a thing that you don't have the money, maybe you should
Right.
probably not buy the game
There
anyway.
are a handful of legitimate reasons. Sure.
But
Yes.
sometimes you'll get like cool bonuses and stuff like that. But are they worth it? I don't know.
And don't they
Right?
just come out anyways later?
Sometimes in some
sometimes they
capacity,
do.
like um,
The thing about pre-orders is that there are the rare occasion where whatever pre-ordering will be in some form or another a limited release, right? And I think that's a lot of times what they do to try to get you to pre-order is they'll say, like, hey, get this limited edition version of it, that kind of says like, hey, I was there first. And I think at least for collectors of physical media, I think that for me, I pre-order a lot of stuff. Like I didn't need to pre-order season 4 of Rick and Morty, but I did. And it just
Wubba
means
lubba
that
dub dub.
it just means that it got to my house on release day from Amazon, and I didn't have to to
you have
wait
to wait
around
for it.
or run somewhere to get it. And the same thing with like in the case of like Mario 3D All Stars, that's a limited physical release. They're not going to make it anymore or release it after March 31st. So if you didn't get a copy of it during the first run, you might not ever get a physical copy of it. So it's like there's that. But speaking of pre-orders, it kind of segues into our next topic, which is the
Sure.
recent fiasco with the Nvidia RTX 3000, PlayStation, and Xbox pre-orders. We basically saw a bunch of bots pre-ordering a lot of the consoles. We saw the Xbox One X go up crazy amount of sales on Amazon
Whoops.
because people were obviously confused by it not being the Series X. But and we saw a lot of these things getting purchased within seconds, sold out, and then thrown up on eBay by scalpers who are,
The
let's
scum
be
of the
honest,
earth.
really shitty people, really scumbaggy. So, it's just a nightmare. I
Bunch of
assume
savages in this town.
I don't think any of us here pre-ordered PlayStation, Xbox. Steve, did you try to pre-order the Nvidia 3000?
They didn't do pre-orders for the 3000 series cards. They did like, hey, it's launching at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is 6 here. Good luck. And they're like, we'll have protections, and they didn't have shit. And if they did, it was like the worst protection ever. Like, not good.
So you didn't get one, I assume.
I actually got a 3090 a few days ago. I got it on when Nvidia restocked the site, and it was another couple seconds, and I happened to be in a Discord group that was like, watching them. And there was a bunch of people talking like, hey, it just went from out of stock to check availability. We think there's a drop coming. And sure enough, I hopped on there real quick, and I just started slamming the shit out of my F5 key, and it said add to cart, and I got it.
Nice.
It'll be here on Wednesday, the day I leave for California for a week. So
The sweet irony.
yeah, I'm
Aren't you
like,
glad you pre-ordered it?
yeah, well, I didn't pre-order it.
I know,
I
and
just
that's-
ordered it.
Right, exactly.
But
Got a lot of good.
I mean, it's not like I paid extra for it, so it is what it is. I was gonna buy it anyway. I had the money set aside for this for months.
Yeah.
But it was really frustrating for the 3080 because I got up at like 5:45, expecting the 6 a.m. launch, and I didn't expect it to be like. It's literally the same people
That's like BlizzCon
that's-
tickets, dude.
Yeah, dude, it's ridiculous. It was legitimately the same like bots and stuff like that for the people that buy limited edition or limited release sneakers and flip them on eBay. It's the same dudes, or girls or whoever it is.
Sneakerheads.
Yeah, and literally went from at 6 o'clock. It went from check availability or coming soon to out of stock. It sold out on Newegg, on Best Buy, and on Nvidia's site literally within a minute. And they were like, oh, whoops. And, Nvidia made an announcement about like how they'll do better on the 3090 launch, and they've got better things in place now. So I got up at 5:30 for the 3090 launch, and same exact thing happened. Within seconds, 3090 was done. 6 o'clock hit, 6:01. I mean, literally 5:59. I have screenshots of my desktop where it showed out of stock at 5:59. I was like, I don't even care. I was pissed, not because I didn't get one, but I was pissed because like, how hard is it to throw captchas up and like protect from this stuff? Like, is it really that difficult?
Right, or limit them.
Yeah,
just let everybody buy one.
So that was the other thing. The first for the 3080, they said that they were going to instill. They're like, oh, we're going to put a limit of quantity one for one per household for the 3090. It's like you didn't do that for the 3080. What are you, stupid? Like, and instantly they're all over eBay. They were all over eBay for the 3090 launch, and they're just crazy inflated prices. Now I will say that the gaming community did have a heyday with eBay for a little bit, and they got a substantial number of these auctions up to like 70 to 80,000 just with their own bots and stuff like that, where they'd create accounts and they just bid up all these cards just to piss people off, which was kind of hilarious. But
should we send Timmy to college, or should we get a video card?
Right. Well, nobody obviously is gonna buy him at that. They're just inflating them to piss them off.
That's ridiculous.
100%. 100%.
It's weird with with graphics cards and stuff like that, because they're and specifically with the graphics cards and the PlayStation, Xbox stuff, because they're really just attacking early adopters, right? And they're taking advantage of people who need to have it first, because as we've seen with every console generation, nothing exclusive about the PS5 or the Series X is going to be a long-term
None of it.
availability problem, right? Eventually you'll be able to walk into any retail electronics store and pick one up. So all they're really doing is taking advantage of people who are trying to either get a gift for their kids for Christmas, or the people who missed out on standing in line at a GameStop, and who need to get the console, and they'll pay whatever price they'll get for it. Like, we saw this exact same thing happen with the PS4, not the PS4, the PS3. I'm sorry. When the PS3 originally released, it was one of those things where it had the two versions of it, and one of the versions was fully backwards compatible with PS2 titles, and that got removed from later iterations to make the console cheaper. But we're not going to see that here. Like, the PS5 is not boasting some kind of backwards compatibility that won't be in second iterations. So it's like, why there's such a rush to get them bought and then put them on eBay? It's like, there's just, it doesn't make any sense. And as somebody who collects action figures and toys and other physical media, like, it's a little bit more prevalent in those industries. Like, I actually just within the last 2 weeks was on Hasbro's website buying a couple figures, and those figures were originally supposed to be convention exclusives, but conventions didn't happen this year, so they decided to put them on the website for an exclusive release, and that makes a little bit more sense, right? Like, limited quantity of a figure is not going to be produced forever,
right?
So with that, it's like, you kind of are put in a situation where it's like, do you try to go and buy it at the regular price now, or do I try to go on eBay and spend triple the price to get that figure? And when you're a collector who is kind of like compelled to get, one of everything in a specific line, it makes more sense. But from a, PS5 will be, you'll be able to pick one up at Walgreens in 2 years, right? It's not like it's going anywhere.
In 2 months.
It's like, why waste the effort to try to pre-order it and get it now and spend, double the price to get one?
If you're not first, you're last. Shake and bake.
I mean, it's certainly exploiting like FOMO and stuff like that, 100%. And it's super silly. And the people that are buying from these scalpers are just, come on. What are you doing?
Stop.
As a collector, I've been in situations where I've had opportunities to buy, a figure, and it's like, if I have an opportunity to buy two, sometimes I do, because I know that I've either got a collector friend who will have missed out and I can, give it to him for a regular price, or if he doesn't want it, I can sell it on eBay and make double the price. And it's like, you end up either dying a hero or living long enough to, see yourself become a villain. And it's like, I don't want to contribute to scalper, just to the scalping industry and for people who do that. But at the same time, if I know that at some point I'm going to be punished by scalpers by not getting the thing that I want, I might as well, jump in and see if I can't get an extra, $60 for a figure that I only paid 30 for. And then maybe that is money that I put towards the next figure that I miss out on and I need, but I'm not going to do that with, PS5. Like, I'll happily wait 2 years and see it even drop in price by $100 and get one brand new and not off some scumbag on eBay. So
doing that for collectibles is totally different than doing it for a console that'll be there in a month and a half.
It's still shitty to do it for collectibles. It's still shitty.
It's less shitty because there's
supply and demand.
There's a different kind of, like, I mean, that's just like saying somebody's gonna pay extra for a baseball card. That's like, what's the difference? They're paying for a novelty item that is a collectible, that's unique, that's whatever value to them for whatever reason, right? I can palate that. But for like a piece of hardware that's going to be available within a couple months, if not a couple weeks, at stores and stuff like that, you're just being a shithead to take advantage of people. It's just crappy.
You're just trying to ruin some poor kid's Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
All he wants is the Xbox Series X, and his parents can't get one because their last Turbo Man doll sold out, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's going to run around trying to get one. And
it's not a tuna.
Yeah, it's the
wrong movie, Joe.
Yeah.
No, it is the wrong movie, but
I know it's the wrong movie.
It's the right guy.
I don't know how to do a Sinbad accent. Okay.
but you know how to do an Arnold Schwarzenegger accent.
What are you doing?
Speaking of
Who told you
ruining,
could eat my movies?
speaking of ruining kids' Christmases, which I'm sure Joe's going to do a lot this year. What are you guys excited for the holiday season?
Food.
Crippling debt.
I think I was
Crippling
talking
debt,
about
yeah.
gaming specifically. You bunch of fucking nerds.
Mongoloids.
So I don't know if there's a ton of stuff that's coming out during what you would consider like normally all the companies have some big release, and I think the Xbox and the PS5 releases are kind of taking a huge chunk of what normally would be a big holiday season for software. Do we really have just a big drought this year and big releases that are going to happen around Christmas time? Or do you think these gaming companies are holding their cards closer to the chest? I know Nintendo's been kind of
Quiet,
shadow dropping a lot of their stuff with their directs. They'll like they announced Mario 3D All Stars 2 weeks before it was coming out. They did the same thing with Pikmin 3. A lot of these companies, could they be just holding these kind of big releases to their
I mean,
maybe
under wraps until it's time to announce them
yeah,
holiday season?
yeah, they could potentially. I think the biggest one for me is probably Breath of the Wild 2.
That's not slated for this year though.
It's not slated for this year.
Got me there.
So
if I dream, anything will come out this year.
They haven't said no. I mean, if they're releasing games 2 weeks after they announce them, you never know what could happen, I guess.
It's true.
Mean, Apex Legends dropped the same day it was announced at a conference, so it happens.
I love your optimism, Joe. Like, Breath of the Wild 2 is coming out this year. No, it's not. Well, they didn't say it wasn't. You're right.
I mean, they didn't say it wasn't.
You're not wrong.
So thanks, buddy.
I don't think that there's a lot besides like the console stuff that we've already beaten to death. That is really there to be excited for, or that's like being talked about or anything like that when it comes to gaming. I think that I'm more excited to see like announcements and things like that happen for what's going to come hopefully early in 2021, because I think that the delays and stuff like that from from COVID and all that stuff have pushed back a lot of what we would have expected to happen in these next coming months. And I think that it's when it comes to like a development standpoint and production and stuff like that. So I think that Q1 of 2021 hopefully is going to be a bigger time for us when it comes to just seeing new things come out. You've got HP that's releasing or at least announcing two I think it's two different versions of a new VR headset that they worked with Valve on, that's supposed to have like all kinds of crazy shit that that's more advanced with like a camera that watches your facial expressions and all kinds of stuff. And it's like from the the videos and the articles that I've read, it sounds like it's ready-ish. I don't know when it's exactly going to be released or whatnot, but like I'd love to see I just want to see announcements. I want to see, I want to get excited for what's coming. And I'm hoping that at the very least we get that during the holiday season. Because I think that even if the titles aren't launching at console launch, I think that Microsoft, Sony, those guys are going to push for more announcement trailers and more stuff to build hype in getting those next gen consoles. And if it happens to be just with announcement trailers and things of that nature, then so be it. If that's all that they can get, I'm sure that they'll push for it. And I think the closer we get to that stuff, we're going to start seeing more and more of that, hopefully.
Sure. Joe?
I have nothing to add. Breath of the Wild 2.
I'm just looking forward to us getting closer to it not being 2020.
Just you wait.
Hopefully 2021 has a lot more positive things coming our way. So, all right, folks. I think that's going to do it for our show this week. I want to thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out Twitter, Instagram, at ModernGamer USA, and on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon to make sure you stay up to date with all of our info on the podcast on YouTube if you're subscribing on YouTube. Last but certainly not least, let's check out the website. If you go to moderngamer.com, we just got a fantastic article from Steve posting a piece about the all of the best cloud-based gaming services, and I just recently published the latest backlog video where I talk about The Messenger, which is a fantastic little title. Please check us out at moderngamer.com. It's where we post all our written content as well as links to our other stuff. So that's our show for this week. I want to thank you all for stopping by and listening and watching, and come back and see us next time.
Peace.
Take care, guys. Bye.